This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for your company. We have a massive show coming up today, starting with the violent riots unfolding in LA, where masked protesters have been taking to the streets, setting cars on fire, some waving the Mexican flag, some waving the Palestinian flag, spraying graffiti that reads F America. Thugs are looting stores and damaging property and setting fire to the American flag as they demonstrate against illegal immigrants being deported. But according to California Governor Gavin Newsom, these protesters are peaceful and LA authorities have it under control.
But the peaceful protesters, we want to keep them safe. We want them to exercise their fundamental rights. We want to keep those that are enforcing the laws in a respectful and responsible way also safe. But Donald Trump needs to pull back.
Gavin Newsom says that LA has enough police officers. The reality is LA has fewer police per capita than other big cities, almost half as many as Chicago, and it didn't take long for protesters to overrun police, block highways and light police cars on fire. LA police have so far made 50 arrests, including charges for attempted murder with Molotov cocktails. 5 officers and LAPD horses have sustained rather injuries. And the LA police chief, Jim McDonnell, has admitted that his police force has been completely overwhelmed.
We are overwhelmed as far as the number of people out there engaged in this type of activity and the type of things that they're doing. They'll take backpacks, and the backpack will have a cinder block in it. They have a hammer, and they'll break up the cinder block and use that, pass it around to throw at officers, to throw at cars, and throw at other people.
Now, it's no secret that California Governor Gavin Newsom is the worst governor in California's history. His policies have increased violent crime so much it's now 35% higher than the national average. His handling of the deadly wildfire crisis back in January that left more than 10,000 homes destroyed and cost $250 billion was disgusting. His failure to mobilise firefighters before the fire began is what led to this catastrophe. And when the cameras were on him, we saw him weasel and gaslight, claiming that all the reservoirs were filled when we know that's not true. A major reservoir was sitting empty. And once again, we're seeing him do the exact same thing, just gaslight, deflect and blame Donald Trump for the chaos in his state, because Donald Trump sent the National Guard to restore law and order because LA police could not handle this level of violence. And Gavin Newsom is now suing Trump over this, which we'll get into later in the show. But it's not just Gavin Newsom who seems to be on another planet. LA Mayor Karen Bass is possibly worse than he is. Looking at her latest budget proposal, she wants to see hundreds of police officers laid off, around 400 of them. And we know her history, making sure there's plenty of money allocated to spend on DEI projects in LA. But once again, we're seeing how incompetent she is in times of crisis. According to Karen Bass, the National Guard should not have been deployed because police have this under control.
This is intentional chaos. You know, I had talked to representatives of the Trump administration earlier on to tell them that the Los Angeles Police Department could control things that were happening here and that there was no need to federalize troops. And so to have this here is really just a provocation and something that was not needed in our city.
The calls for Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass to resign are back. There are right now more than 200,000 signatures on a petition calling for Mayor Bass to resign. Now, this one was set up earlier in the year because she ignored the fire warnings and advice from authorities and flew to Ghana when LA was on fire, and then, of course, refused to answer questions. But Trump was asked about Gavin Newsom today, and he did not hold back.
A crime has he committed? I think his primary crime is running for governor because he's done such a bad job. What he's done to that state is like what Biden did to this country. And that's pretty bad. It's a wrong philosophy. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, many of them prisoners. They're taking up your health care. They're taking up your space in schools. They're taking up your hospital. And in many cases, they're criminals.
It's estimated there are around 10 million illegals in the United States, and we know that Donald Trump promised that he was going to deport them. But what is it with the Democrats straight up lying about how violent these riots have become, essentially siding with the thugs who are destroying LA? Failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris weighed in on all of this, saying how appalled she was that Trump sent the National Guard and that the protests were overwhelmingly peaceful. And here's Democrat Maxine Waters telling the cameras that there's no danger and no violence.
We don't know why they're calling in the National Guard. There's no danger. There's no violence. The President of the United States hates Los Angeles because we're a sanctuary city. He doesn't like us, and we're targeted. And so I believe that he really wants to have martial law to show that he's in charge. He's the President of the United States, and all of the city of LA is targeted.
And Democrat Cory Booker, what has he had to say about all this?
The reality is we see peaceful protests launching in Los Angeles. And again, any violence against police officers should not be accepted. Local authorities can handle that. But remember, a lot of these peaceful protests are being generated because the President of the United States is sowing chaos and confusion by arresting people who are showing up for their immigration hearings.
Democrats once again lying, gaslighting, blaming Donald Trump, and it seems they'd rather see LA burn than law and order be restored. But has the mainstream media been telling you the truth about what's really happening? Let's find out. So as we've seen so much violence erupting, cars being torched, protesters chanting F America, how does CNN describe it?
There's unrest. Let's start with there's protest, lawful protest, which is allowed in this country. There is some unrest, generally dealt with by local law enforcement, and if there needs to be state support through state police.
Some unrest, that's one way to put it. What about over on MSNBC?
I believe that the LAPD has this underhand, and they are very, very experienced in riot control. So this is something that they can handle. We do not have to have the National Guard here. We certainly do not have to have the Marines here. This is a manufactured crisis, and we do not need the Insurrection Act, and that is an understatement.
And what about ABC? Well, this ABC reporter sounds a bit like Gavin Newsom. According to her report, the riots are peaceful.
Demonstrations had been going on right outside the Federal Detention Center. Most of those demonstrators were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting. People were driving by, honking their horns. And again, they were expressing their anger about the detention of so many immigrants at the Federal Center. Most of the evening, the federal agents stayed inside the building, but at a certain point, some of the demonstrators got very close to the property. In fact, some of them went onto the property, started tagging the building, started banging on fences, and shortly after all that happened, the agents started firing off tear gas.
And here's some more coverage on ABC suggesting that law enforcement could be what's making this volatile, and ultimately these protesters are having some fun.
Large group of people, it could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
Joining us now is President and founder of Strelmark, Hillary Fordwich. Hillary, great to see you. There's so much to unpack about what's happening in Los Angeles. Gavin Newsom is now suing Donald Trump for sending in the National Guard at a time of lawless riots and violent attacks on law enforcement in LA. But for the past few days, all we've really been hearing from Democrats and the mainstream media is that these protests are peaceful. I mean, come on. Can I get your reaction to all of this?
Well, great to be back with you again, Gabriella. You're absolutely right. Photographs don't lie. If a picture tells 1,000 words, what does a live video stream of burning cars, violent rioters and burning American flags show? And the other thing, Gabriella, is they're all waving Mexican flags. Well, they can just cross the border and go back to Mexico. To be burning the flag of the nation that you're in right in front of the TV cameras, I think it says it all.
Absolutely. And look, Donald Trump said it would be a great thing if Border Czar Tom Homan arrested Gavin Newsom, and Trump was asked about this today.
I would do it if I were Trump. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it's a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, people that are causing the problem are professional agitators. They're insurrectionists. They're bad people. They should be in jail. Thank you.
Look, that's classic Donald Trump. But, you know, Gavin Newsom has really failed California, and he's blaming Trump for the chaos.
Yes, I'd actually like to have a taxpayer from Los Angeles say on camera, I am really glad to pay my taxes so that illegals can come into my town, burn my town down, you know, be violent against the police officers, burning police officers' cars and spitting at them. I can't imagine any sane taxpayer ever saying that, Gabriella. So I think President Trump, again, just like with the election, when he received a mandate to deport illegals, I think this is actually, ironically, turning more Californians probably away from the Democratic Party. That's what we've seen. And now they say that if it wasn't for actually the cities in California, the rest of California would be Republican.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And look, these protests are against the ICE raids. And although violent protesters have been targeting ICE agents, attacking their vehicles, causing absolute mayhem, this weekend, ICE agents were successful in detaining several criminal illegals. And according to reports, they include sex offenders, gang members, and others who'd been convicted on gun and drug charges. And as you say, this is what Donald Trump has a mandate for. He ran on deporting illegals. It was his #1 issue during the election, and it's what the majority of Americans voted for. This is what they want.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And what I always like to do is look at the source of what is the source of a poll. It was very interesting. The legacy media, ABC and CBS and CNN, they even had to report the numbers that this is what the American public wanted. And the screenshot you just had up a moment ago was very good, Gabriella, because it showed the rap sheets of these illegals. These aren't just people coming because they need a job and want to have safety from some kind of war. No, they're violent criminals. They're rapists. They're child molesters. They're pedophiles. So again, let's ask a taxpayer, are you happy these people are here? Would you like them in your neighborhood, in your home with your children? Absolutely not. I can't imagine a sane taxpayer wanting them in their community.
Now, I've got to ask you about Gaza, Greta. Climate activist Greta Thunberg's publicity stunt sailing to Gaza on a boat powered by diesel engines has achieved absolutely nothing. Here she is in a pre-recorded video claiming that she had been kidnapped.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
Poor choice of words, considering there are still 50 people who were kidnapped on October 7, still being held by Hamas terrorists in Gaza. But the reality is Israeli forces intercepted her yacht, gave all the activists food and water. She's even photographed smiling as she accepts a sandwich. They've been taken back to Israel, and it's been revealed today that Greta Thunberg and the other activists refused to watch a video which actually shows the atrocities committed by Hamas on October 7. It's a video that I've seen, and it's absolutely horrific. It shows Israelis, innocent people being killed, women being raped. It's horrific. But it's no surprise that Greta Thunberg just doesn't want to see it. She doesn't seem to care about what happened to Israelis on October 7. But Donald Trump was asked about Greta Thunberg, and this is what he had to say.
Do you have a message for Greta Thunberg, and did she come up on your call with the Prime Minister today?
Well, she's a strange person. She's a young, angry person. I don't know if it's real anger. It's hard to believe, actually. But I saw what happened. She's certainly different. Anger management. I think she has to go to an anger management class. That's my primary recommendation for her.
Was she kidnapped by Israel, as she says? Was she kidnapped?
I find it. I think Israel has enough problems without kidnapping Greta Thunberg.
And secondly, are you going to
Is that what she said? She was kidnapped by Israel?
Yes.
Anger management, he's not wrong. But, you know, Greta's yacht was carrying less than a single truckload of aid. And to put that into perspective, more than 1,200 aid trucks have entered Gaza from Israel within the past 2 weeks. This whole thing was just a big publicity stunt, and she's failed.
Yes, absolutely. And on that note, I think the Israeli government actually had a very good term for it. They called it the selfie. They said the
selfie yacht.
Yeah, the selfie yacht. The show is over, is what they said. I thought it was very well chosen words, very succinct, and said it all. Also, you referred to her with her smiling face. Yes, actually, the Israelis provided sandwiches and water to all of them. No, they weren't kidnapped. That was a pre-recorded video she made. So you're absolutely right. I think this is abhorrent, and particularly that she refused to watch the video. That was the 45-minute video that many journalists, such as yourself, many have seen. Defense minister in Israel said before they're allowed to go back to Sweden, they should watch this video. The fact that she refused, like you made the point, does she absolutely not care about reality? And last but not least, what about her dire concerns about the environment? What was the carbon footprint of this trip, and what about that? So that's actually, I suppose, been solved all of a sudden.
Yeah, isn't that funny? All of a sudden she doesn't care about that. Look, there's been so much news around, but it was actually just only a few days ago, it's hard to believe this, that the president and the world's wealthiest man, Elon Musk, were fighting like cats and dogs. Now, it appears as though Elon Musk is trying to make an effort to really smooth things over. He's deleted that tweet linking Trump to the Epstein files, and he's now been resharing the president's posts on X showing support for Donald Trump's handling of the anti-ICE riots in LA. He's also been sharing JD Vance's posts. So what are your thoughts on this? Is this Elon Musk, I suppose, sucking back up to the president? And do you think that this relationship can be repaired?
Well, we'll put it this way. For the good of America, I really hope so. I think it's a great pity they had a falling out. There was a time there, you talked about fighting like cats and dogs, and I thought it was like two little schoolboys actually in the playground throwing stones at each other. I will say, actually, though, not that this was planned. Obviously, it wasn't. But if it was, there wasn't a way really to do two things, unintended consequences, Gabriella. Number one, Elon Musk actually made Trump take the high road. He looked far more professional, far more sane. I think he had great appeal to many people in America because most people would have expected him to get down in the mud. He didn't. He took the high road. That's number one. Number two, it actually, Gabriella, made a number of Republicans that were on the fence about the big, beautiful bill that he initially criticized. It brought them together, and it's made the few Republicans sort of rally around President Trump. So unintended consequences that have actually ended up being rather good. As for their relationship, I do predict eventually, unlike other relationships like Prince Harry and King Charles, I do think there is a chance for this to be repaired because it's in their mutual best interest, economically.
Yeah, I agree with you. They are both patriots, and I think a lot of Americans would like to see that relationship repaired. But it's interesting watching this play out. So many Democrats were so fearful of their relationship, thinking that Elon Musk, had too much influence over President Trump, and he has proved them all wrong, that he is, of course, in charge and he cannot be bought. I have to ask you about this story. A Chinese national has been arrested and charged for allegedly trying to smuggle biological materials from Wuhan into the US and then lying to federal agents about it. Chong Xuan-Han was taken into custody at Detroit Metropolitan Airport after arriving from Shanghai. She's been charged with smuggling goods into the US and making false statements. And she's the third Chinese scientist charged in recent weeks with smuggling illegal biological materials into Michigan. I mean, what more can you tell us?
Yes, no, I think this is absolutely ghastly. And actually, it's very scary because this is not the first attempt, Gabriella. She actually, you're right, came from Shanghai and this was sent to the University of Michigan. She denied it. She was grilled. She finally admitted. But there were also two other, in quotes, scientists that have tried to smuggle fungi in their shoe soles. So this is not the very first incident. The other thing is, and this is something sort of related that President Trump has been putting his foot down about, is these Chinese that are over here. They don't get to leave China without the approval of the Communist Party, Gabriella. So we know that they're coming here with a mission, and many of them, like these, are coming here with the attempt actually to destroy crops. These fungi were going to be destroying the food supply in the United States, which is a terrifying thought, and I'm really glad they're caught. The question is, how many more of them, how many more students are here on a dastardly mission?
Yeah, very concerning. Hilary Fordwich, thank you so much for your time. Great to speak with you.
Oh, pleasure, Gabriella.
Joining us now is host of Prime Time with Alex Stein. Alex, it is great to see you. Look, LA is right now bracing for more riots. We know that 500 Marines are mobilising to LA to respond to the anti-immigration enforcement riots. And this, of course, comes after Trump sent around 2,000 National Guardsmen to LA. What's your take on what's unfolding at the moment and how the president has been able to respond?
Well, it sets a very scary precedent using United States military on, even though there's a lot of illegal immigrants, on United States citizens. So I don't like to see it. It's a stain. It's an embarrassment. California was literally just on fire and they didn't even have water in the fire hydrants to put it out. And now there's so much civil unrest. It literally looks like out of an action movie or a video game. It is so bad. So, I'm happy that Donald Trump is using the National Guard, but at the same time, I don't like the National Guard being deployed on American citizens. This just is it's a slippery slope. And, with the pandemic, they didn't use the military against United States citizens, but theoretically in a future pandemic, it might be more normal after this instance to use the military on United States citizens again in the future. So I just don't like it. I wish that we could actually stop this with the LAPD. But what is Gavin Newsom? What are they telling? What is the Mayor Karen Bass telling them to do? Stand down. So it's sad that it's gotten to this point because the leadership in California is so terrible.
So terrible. And Democrats have been calling these riots peaceful. I mean, Gavin Newsom has been posting all over X constantly. He recently wrote, "California, don't give Donald Trump what he wants. Speak up, stay peaceful, stay calm, do not use violence and respect the law enforcement officers that are trying their best to keep the peace." So he's acknowledging that there is violence in the same breath as saying stay peaceful. And Karen Bass, who you mentioned, went on CNN making her case for troops to be withdrawn.
This is intentional chaos. I had talked to representatives of the Trump administration earlier on to tell them that the Los Angeles Police Department could control things that were happening here and that there was no need to federalize troops. And so to have this here is really just a provocation and something that was not needed in our city.
It's amazing watching Karen Bass being proven wrong in real time. She's on CNN saying that it's peaceful. Meanwhile, there's vision showing just how badly the riots have escalated. What do you make of the two leaders, Bass and Newsom?
Well, to be fair to Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass, I guess since most of the cars that they've blown up are self-driving cars, theoretically, yeah. I mean, I guess they're not hurting. Less people are getting hurt. They're just burning the cars. And since it's AI driving it, I guess less people are getting hurt in their book. No, it's insane. I mean, it's just like the president of Mexico telling the ICE needs to stand down here in America. It doesn't make sense. Why do foreign countries want to dictate what our government and military and police force can do here? And why does Karen Bass and Governor Gavin Newsom want to lie and obfuscate the truth of what's happening in their state? Like, it's just so obvious that the rest of the country looks at this and it's just appalling. And they are seeing the same exact footage that we're seeing, and yet they want to look right in our faces and lie and say it's not a big deal. It's just mostly peaceful. But when we can see the cars that are on fire, we can see the people getting shot with non-lethal bean bags. It's not a nothing burger. It's a very serious issue. And I think there's going to be more unrest like this in the country. But because LA is such a Hispanic dominated area, I think this is going to be the epicenter of even all the future protests when it comes to the immigration conflict here in America.
And it seems that the Democrats are just have such a big issue with ICE agents doing their job. We know that Donald Trump promised that he was going to deport illegal immigrants, and now the Democrats just don't want this to go ahead, I suppose. Here's Gavin Newsom saying that some of the illegals that are rioting in the street are just here to live their lives and pay taxes.
Get your hands off these poor people who are just trying to live their lives, man. Trying to live their lives, paying their taxes, been here 10 years. The fear, the horror, the hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me, let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn. But I care about my community, I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up, they need to stop, and we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
And when we hear from Karen Bass, she seems to lump in illegal immigrants with legal migrants as if there's no distinction.
We are going to fight for all Angelenos, regardless of when they got here, whether they have papers or not. We are a city of immigrants, and this impacts hundreds of thousands of Angelenos.
So, Alex, papers or not, it doesn't matter, according to Karen Bass.
Yeah, I mean, these people are absolute lunatics. I mean, they want to actually give health care to illegal immigrants instead of giving it to tax-paying Americans in California. That's how absurd things have gotten. So once again, I'm not shocked at all. And of course, Gavin Newsom wants to paint these Hispanics that have been here for 10 or 20 years as victims. Yet they've been here 10 or 20 years and they haven't even bothered to take care of their immigration status whatsoever. So it just doesn't make sense why they have so many excuses for illegal immigration, when in reality, all of the people that have to come here and immigrate legally, they feel, like every bit of effort that they put in was meaningless. So you're actually taking away from the, gravitas of becoming an American citizen the right way. Yeah. You're denigrating those people for doing it the right way, and you're encouraging people to do it the wrong way, which is just absolutely pitiful when it comes to a country like America. We should encourage people to come here the right way and not come here illegally and setting up their family for failure in 10 years when the immigration policies change and all of a sudden you're afraid that you might get deported. This is a bad situation, but the Democrats are to blame for setting it up like this.
Well, moving on to another big story in the United States. Gymnast Simone Biles is facing pretty big backlash after slamming women's sports advocate Riley Gaines in a heated post on X. Simone Biles wrote, "You're truly sick, all of this campaigning because you lost a race, straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports, maybe a transgender category in all sports, but instead you bully them. One thing for sure is no one in sports is safe with you around. Bully someone your own size, which ironically would be a male." Now, this post has drawn widespread criticism, especially as Riley Gaines has been such a big supporter for safety for women in sport. She lost to a biological male a few years ago. What's your take on all of this?
Well, the reason why this is such a big issue, it's not about being progressive or fairness, because it's an asymmetrical problem. If you look at this, why is it always male to female athletes that are going into women's sports and dominating? Yet there is not one example of a female to male going into male sports and dominating. And on top of that, all male sports are open to the best women. You can play college football if you're the best female kicker. There's been women that have tried. So this is an asymmetrical problem that only affects female sports. And that's why it needs to be shut down. But Simone Biles wants to continue to do this as some sort of weird virtue signal because she's probably told to by her Hollywood agent and her NFL husband. So anything she says, you can take with a grain of salt. And she's a great gymnast. Don't get me wrong, but she could actually be a freedom fighter for some of the terrible things that, Larry Nassar and just some of the horrible things that happened to the gymnast. Instead of being a champion for other victims like herself, she wants to go and attack Riley Gaines, who was a victim of Leah Thomas. So it's just kind of victim shaming. It's really sad. She should be lifting women up instead of putting them down to help transgenders in women's sports. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, well said, Alex. Look, finally, if there's any doubt about just how popular the president is right now, we have to take a look at how the crowd goes absolutely wild at this UFC where Donald Trump walks out with Dana White. mean, look at that. The crowd is roaring.
Yeah, but you know who wasn't roaring? Elon Musk was crying watching that on Twitter. He's just, I miss you, Donald. I think he retweeted him today. So, yeah, no, that was all, it was all electricity in that arena. But Elon Musk, he felt like, his prom date left him at the prom, or he didn't get a date to the prom. He definitely felt left out. He had a lot of FOMO seeing that on his Twitter feed last night.
Are they going to patch things up, do you think?
I mean, I think that would be the smartest thing for Elon Musk. I mean, Donald Trump obviously trusted the guy, let him in his inner circle, but you hear some of these stories about Elon Musk assaulting people, and it just seems like, personally, if I was just judging it, it seems like Elon was the more volatile one of the two, and that it would be his responsibility, I think, and I don't know the inner workings, but I believe that it would be on Elon to repair that relationship. And I think Donald Trump has had public feuds with lots of people and repair that relationship. So I wouldn't put it past him to actually repair things. But once again, I think it would have to be Elon that would have to spearhead that if they had a reconciliation.
Yeah, I agree with you. Alex Stein, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Great to talk to you.
Always a pleasure. Talk to you guys again soon.
Joining us now for all the royals and entertainment news is News Corp columnist Angela Mollard. Angela, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Gabriella.
Meghan Markle, she may have stepped down from royal duties more than 5 years ago, but she keeps taking aim at the monarchy. The Duchess of Sussex has made reportedly at least half a dozen swipes at the royal family this year, and it's only June. So bring us up to speed.
That's right. Well, she very first, obviously, when she launched as ever her new company, the very first thing she said was, look, when I had the TIG, which was her previous lifestyle website, I loved cooking and I loved gardening and being a hostess, and that she basically said I had to keep my light under a bushel at this time because of the royal family. Then we get her show, her Netflix show, and there's digs throughout that show. She says, Daniel Martin, her makeup artist, has been her friend during the before, the during, the after. She talks about her creativity being stunted. She says that when, she first, and, as a result of the royal family, she says that when she became a mum, she would have thought that she'd be able to have a baby on her hip and give speeches. But then, the whole drama and the pain and everything that was caused by being part of the royal family, they're all very carefully considered. Yes. They're not a direct assault on the royal family, but you only have to follow it to know that she's just getting these little digs in all the time, which means that she can't quite disengage herself from being royal. Why would she? It's the only reason that she actually has a platform, and yet she has to keep having a go at them. She's smart enough to know that we'll be talking about it if she has a go, so it keeps her in the news cycle, which means Netflix keeps hiring her, because even if the ratings aren't great, which they weren't, the fact that she's constantly being discussed means that she's a bona fide person to be engaging with.
But it's no wonder that her popularity just keeps dropping, and people that have been following along can see right through this. But yes, I'm sure, seeing as it's only June, there'll be more to come, unfortunately. But let's talk about Princess Anne, because Princess Anne has declined parties and personal fanfare for her 75th birthday, and she's instead hosted more than 100 of her charities at Buckingham Palace. So she reportedly spent more than 2 hours at this event and personally greeting more than 200 guests and thanking them for their work. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
It's interesting. We go from Meghan to Princess Anne, and two totally different representations of what it is to be royal. That's right. She's spent her 75th birthdays in August, but obviously that's the time of the year, midsummer for the Brits, when they're not around. So she doesn't want to party, any fanfare, anything like that. She's had these 200 guests, all from 100 different charities. She, of course, is the hardest working royal member of the royal family and has been for years. And it's not just some of these charities. If you look back, she's been with Save the Children, for instance, since 1970. She's been engaged with a charity which works with horses and disabled children since 1971. Wow. I mean, these are back when she herself was in her 20s, which illustrates what she sees being royal to be, that being the monarchy is not just crowns and castles, it's actually doing the work. And there was a brilliant profile of her earlier in the year with The Telegraph, where she allowed a journalist to accompany her on one of her one of her patronage's meetings and duties they spent a day. And this journalist just said she just knew everything about this charity. She knew all the people involved, the work that they were doing. So lending her name to it, of course, draws attention to it, allows for better fundraising. This is, of course, what the royal family, the whole ethos of the royal family for generations.
Incredible. I absolutely love to hear it. Now, there's been a bit of parking and neighbour drama involving the King. Residents living near King Charles's Highgrove house are apparently frustrated that they can't get a park in summer because of all the visitors to the royal mansion. So they apparently have to pay £650 a year for a season ticket. And locals say that they struggle to find a spot all day due to, there's so many people parking there to visit the house. It just shows how popular the King is.
That's right. This is Highgrove, which is the house that he lives in with Camilla. This is a private house, and it's only the gardens that are open, but it's open for these summer months. Can you imagine, though? You've paid effectively $1,200 Australian to park your car there. There's no designated parking just for the residents. So those bus loads, those visitors, they can just pull in there. They can whack into anyone's car. There's people who live in these houses that, have disabilities that can't get to their car to get to hospital appointments.
My goodness.
So, but you can imagine, somebody said to the King, do you think we might be up to it, have more parking at Highgrove? If that were the case, no way. They don't want the public there. So while they're happy to open the gardens to show them. And look, it's great for the local village, of course, in terms of tourism and spending in the village. It's not great if you live there. They just have to put up those little orange cones, wouldn't they? To keep people out.
The parking spot. Now, Donald Trump is coming to London in September. He'll be the first US president to have 2 state visits, and this is apparently causing a few headaches because of the president's expectations. So there are negotiations happening right behind the scenes because of what Trump wants. What's going on here?
It's hard to believe that President Trump has expectations, doesn't it? Look, he's, as you say, coming over in September, second visit. The thing is that what he would love, of course, is to visit Buckingham Palace and to ride down the Mall in one of those state carriages, which, of course, the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, he did that back in 2015 or 16, I believe it was. Now, anything that another president or prime minister does, Trump wants to do. The trouble with these carriages, though, is they don't have suitable armoury, and obviously Trump is the greatest assassination risk probably in the modern world. So they can't get him in one of the carriages, but they've got to keep him happy other ways. So there's lots of that. He also can't go to Buckingham Palace because that's under renovation. But it's a headache for the palace because when he came last time, the Queen, he was flying by helicopter between the palace and the High Commission where he was staying, the US Commission. But apparently his helicopter left all these divots in the lawn, and Scott Morrison visited not long afterwards. And the Queen pulled Scott Morrison to the window and said, look what President Trump did to my lawn. So it's not just trying to keep Trump happy, it's also making sure that it doesn't cause a mess when he's there. Obviously, diplomatically, he's problematic as well. Last time, Theresa May, the Prime Minister, was trying to push through Brexit, and then Trump gave an interview to The Sun, completely off script that no one was expecting.
Right.
So there needs to be careful management. But of course, they want this visit, the Brits, because the tariff situation between the UK and the US, also the defence negotiations, it's imperative that they keep Trump on side. And, he's having a bromance with Prince William and King Charles, but it's got to be on his terms. So can you imagine being one of the aides working on this visit? You just wouldn't want to. You'd just be tearing your hair out.
Yes, you wouldn't want to get it wrong, and there's a lot to juggle. But let's talk about what's happening in the world of entertainment. There's more shocking revelations coming out of Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial. We've now heard from Diddy's ex-girlfriend, who's been identified in court under the pseudonym as Jane. She's taken to the stand. And she's made more allegations that Diddy allegedly made her take drugs before having sex with a male escort. She also testified about Diddy's alleged violent behaviour, said that there was an incident where he put her in her chokehold, was kicking, punching her, really awful things coming out of this trial. Can you bring us up to speed?
That's right. So she's, as you said, she's anonymous and she's using the name Jane. She also, of course, she was there when Diddy made the video where he apologised to Cassie Ventura, another girlfriend, about assaulting her in that incredible video that we've seen many, many times. So look, all these layers and previous girlfriends are just stacking up and adding up. It marks a month on Wednesday, a month since this trial began. Look, there just seems to be more corroboration of the claims. And, you know, it's really distressing hearing a lot of this evidence. Look, Diddy's pushed back on one witness saying that, you know, her claims that he held her over a balcony should be a mistrial because that he couldn't have been in Los Angeles at the time and that the prosecution knew this. So he's constantly, and his team are trying to muddy the waters along the way. But it's very compelling evidence at this stage, isn't it? I mean, only, as we know, allegations. But look, the fact that we keep... And look, I think, Gabriella, it's the fact that each allegation seems to mirror the previous one. So the evidence, it's aligned with each witness. So, I mean, an interesting case. We can never know a case until it comes to its conclusion. But, you know, he'll have minimum 15 years if he's found guilty of these charges.
Yes. Now, finally, there's been a major development in Justin Baldoni's lawsuit against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds and their publicist. A judge has tossed out the $400 million lawsuit, a major blow to Justin Baldoni. Blake Lively's lawyer says that this is a total victory, complete vindication. Can you tell us about this case?
So this is a defamation case that Baldoni has brought against Blake Lively and her husband, basically saying that what they've said about him is defamatory. Now, the judge has come back and said all of this has been, anything they've said has been delivered in legal argument as part of the allegations against Baldoni. So, of course, it's not, it can't be seen as defamation. So it's a risky talk to bring this case. He, of course, at this stage, yes, the judge has thrown it out, but we don't know what costs he will have to pay to the Lively team. But this just gets nastier and more toxic. It is a win for Blake Lively. The case, the sort of bulk of this case, of course, with her allegations against him about what happened on set, about lack of consent, that sort of thing, that's still due to go to trial, of course, in March 2026. But the toxicity between this pair will mean that once we get to March next year, all eyes will be on that case.
Absolutely. Angela Mollard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.